thank everybody for joining us for this demonstration of Slingerland lesson using online tools. The session was put together, as most of you know, at the request of the participants from the Bay Area follow-up group at our August 24th meeting. But we kind of expanded the group to include Slingerland trained individuals across the country. Before introducing our presenters, there's a couple of items I want to bring to your attention. We are broadcasting live on YouTube. The video is going to be saved out to the Institute's YouTube channel, and we'll send you the link after the session's over tonight. We ask that everybody mute during the presentation unless or until you get called for a question, or if you need more clarification on a process, you can just unmute yourself and pop your question. Don't hesitate to ask questions during this presentation. We'll try to have answers provided immediately. However, we may have to just collect your questions and do some at the end of the session. So if it turns out that we're using up a lot of time, go on ahead and post your questions in the chat and do them as a chat to all, and I will collect them, and then we'll try to at the end. Tonight, demonstrations are going to be done by Denise Little and Will Patterson with some support from Emma and Elizalde and Bonnie McMurray. We're joined by several other Slingerland instructors. Hopefully they'll be able to add their little nuggets of wisdom to the presentation and even help answer some of your questions as we move along. Now to introduce the team. Will, well, let me start with Denise. Sorry, Will. Denise is a Slingerland certified instructor of teachers, and she's based in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. She's a Title I reading teacher for the College Community School Public School District. She is the current, I think, or maybe the immediate past president of the Iowa branch of the International Dyslexia Association. Tonight, she's going to demonstrate the Slingerland lesson using very basic tools that's easily available: Zoom, Word, Google, basically the low-tech side, making it easy for those of us technologists. Then we have Will Patterson. He's a Slingerland tutor in the Bay Area. He's previously worked with the San Francisco Unified School District and is on the path to certification as a certified Slingerland teacher. Will is very familiar with using technology in teaching and will demonstrate the Slingerland lessons using Zoom, online apps, software, and all the other high-tech approaches. So he's your guy to go to when you need help. Emma Elizalde, who's moving right now in her chair, she's a reading specialist at Town School for Boys in San Francisco. She's a Slingerland instructor intern who's also on the path to certification. Emma is the president of the Northern California branch of the International Dyslexia Association. She's been really instrumental in the various video recordings of Slingerland in action. You'll find the videos that Will, Emma, and Aaron recorded on the Slingerland Distance Practices document out on Google Drive, and we can share that link with you later. And then, last but not least, Bonnie McMurray is a Slingerland tutor who's based in the Bay Area, and she has recently expanded her offerings to include online tutoring. Warm welcome to all our presenters. We're all excited to see you guys in action. And so Denise, I understand you're going to be starting us off with the easy piece.
Easy, yes. So I'm one that is learning the technology as I go. This is all I've used Zoom as an IDA president. I've done meetings, that type of stuff with Zoom. However, teaching with Zoom has been a new challenge, and so I'm learning as I go. So, and I'm learning how to classroom teach and also do tutoring. This summer I spent quite a bit of time tutoring children of all different age levels via Zoom. So I just want to share with you some of the tips that I found helpful. We decided to go through basically starting with learning to write and then going all the way down through the auditory side and also the visual side. So I'm going to show with you how I've used Zoom to do handwriting. I have learned more from Will in the last 24 hours that I'm not quite sure I know how to share all of it yet, but I'm going to show you what I've done so far. So if you are in Zoom, you can go to your whiteboard. And in your whiteboard, if you're doing introducing of a new letter or learning to write review step, you can go in and just draw lines for your students. Let me move this over a little bit. So you're making the paper look just like you would their Slingerland handwriting paper with the top, you know, the headline, midline, and then the foot line. And you put it in there, or you can upload the paper into there. I just always go through, because this is easier for me to do, is just to draw the lines in myself. So I just draw it in, and then when I go back and forth from stop share and I go back to reshare my whiteboard, my lines are still there. So I don't lose those as I go. They stay there. So when I do a learning to write, I go into draw and I go to my little draw icon after I've drawn my lines on, and I will, like in the lesson that I pulled out to do, capital T is the letter I was going to teach. So then I will show the children and talk them through, start at the top line, I'll go down a little bit, back up to the top line, straight down to the bottom line, and then I will curve up halfway between the mid and the bottom line, go back down, and depending on if you swing out or not, some people don't teach that. I can talk them through, they can see the whole thing. There is a way, and this is what I'm trying to figure out, that I can, and Will showed me, and I've kind of got it, I can share my pencil with them through, I have to go into my advanced settings and use my little note. Well, you might be able to jump in because I'm trying to find my little note here. I click on allow remote control in the advanced settings. When you're in the beginning of your Zoom page, go enable remote control. And then when they're in sharing the screen, you can allow them to share the pencil with you, and yours will be a different color mark than theirs will be. So you can go right on top of them and correct what they're doing, help them figure it out. Now, my old school way is to I teach them on Zoom, showing them the letters. I also, well, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to stop that share. So I tell them how to do it on Zoom. After doing this for a while, I have decided that I'm going to purchase something. My husband is used to be a graphic designer. And he's like, well, you just get one of these little designing tablets and it makes it a lot easier to write. So if the kids had something like this to write on, or you did, it would make it a lot easier. The option that I've used right now, I'm working with some classroom teachers and also working to send stuff home for parents to do, is I create a lesson on Zoom using that whiteboard like this, and they actually have an actual piece of paper that they're doing their writing on. So it's not high tech. It's the same way we do it. I'm just using this whiteboard as my teaching tool. And then the child is using actual paper, and either the parent or the teacher is there to supervise what is happening. So I know they're getting good quality instruction. Parents love it because they're learning right along with the kids. So by doing this, the parent has to be there, and then the parent knows exactly what you've taught them and how they're supposed to be writing these letters. So that's been a cool thing to do with parents right alongside with the kids. So that's how I do learning to write, or a review step. When I go into the reviewing of my, or not, sorry, not review step, my practicing of letters, that's how I do it. And then when I go into reviewing or letter connections, we are doing it on the paper. And then my students, I've trained them to hold their paper up close so I can see it. And of course, I have to make my screen full screen so I can actually see it. If it's not full screen, I'm looking at it going, oh my goodness. But if they hold it up there and they let it focus, which means they have to hold it for a while, I can see it. So they're writing it just on paper. This is, I have some of my students that are on the actual Slingerland. I can still, this actually is easier to read, but I do have some kids, I try to use whatever they use at school for paper. I try to transition them into that. So I have other kids on that paper. As far as then moving down the format into alphabet cards, I'm using them this way. The same old cards that, you know, we use in class, I'm doing it with the kids. So we're just going through the cards together. I will tell you, it looks backwards to you, but when the participant sees it, it's the right way. So that is what I'm doing for that, just the same way we always do it. And then for the perception or discrimination, or, oops, I think I had, let's see. I am using, which I found out it's not going to be free much longer. Hold on, I am using, takes a few minutes, and you just, the kids are so patient. That's what I've noticed this whole process is giving kids a lot more patience than before. It takes me a few minutes here and there to navigate, but they're so patient. So I am using the Really Great Reading app to do the cards with, to bring them down. And so I will just give the child the card, we'll do the discrimination. They'll have to, a lot of times if I'm doing discrimination with them, I may put cards down here so it's easier, so then they can see what we're discriminating. They don't have the whole pack if I'm doing that part with them where I want them to link it to the vowel. So if I'm doing a word like, well, let's see, what is one of my words I put on here? Sand. I would say sand, a sand, and then they would do the s and drag down their letters, a, and bring it down just like you would in a normal lesson, all the way through the word. And then what I do if I'm doing a suffix at the end, there's no suffix cards up here. So I just have them pull it individually down, but we do it closer together. So we say, my word is sand. If I add the suffix, if I want to make it sanding, the child will say, and I'll add my suffix ing, and they'll write it in the air. And then I have them just pull the cards, but we make it closer together. And I've taught them how to do this. I see how you can lay them right on top of it versus over here, they're a little bit more spread apart, because that's the downfall of this, where if we use, what's the other one? I can't, the Wizmo, there we go. Then you could actually create your suffix cards, because they have prefixes and suffix cards up here that you can click into, but it's not all of them that we need. So, and they're more advanced ones, but I will do it this way with the students. Go ahead. Yeah, Elise.
Quick question. I've got a question from Julia Meyer. She says, why not use the suffix tab? Is there a suffix tab?
There is a suffix, prefix, suffix tab up here, but it doesn't have all of them in that we need. So ing is here, but there are other ones that you need later on that won't be there. So I shouldn't have chose ing. I just put that in there. I should have picked one that wasn't up there. But there are some that are not up there, and there's not enough of them up there. So you may have to. So you can use this, which would be great. But if you don't, this is how, if one of your prefixes or suffixes are not up there, I just do them really close together. So if I'm trying to think of one that I've done with kids, sup. And it's not up here. We have sub, so they could use that because that's a derivative, but it would be, you would have to actually spell it out.
Okay.
So yes, using the prefix and suffix tab would be great if it's in there. If not, putting it together like this is fine to do for the kids. They seem to do all right. So I'm using this for that part. Wismo, I think maybe, another way we end up going later on as this becomes a paid, we might, have to play with both of them. So after they've done all of these, I still am having kids write on the paper, bringing it to the screen, showing me, we do the phrases and the sentences exactly how we would do it in a Slingerland lesson, but using the really great reading pocket chart. And then at the end of my writing lesson, after I've gone through and I've done all of the steps, I ask the students to take a picture of their paper and email it to me very quickly, because most of them have their phones or their parents are nearby, or they have an iPad they're doing their work on with me. I have them take a picture of it and email it to me so that I can, I'm going to go in and show you what it would look like then. Share my screen again. This time I'm using my desktop. Okay, so in my email, they send me this. Then I can actually look at the whole paper as a whole. I can download it or not, but I can see the errors that they were making. I can look and see if there's anything we need to correct. Like on this one, I think the child forgot a period at the end. Well, when he held it up, I didn't notice it. And then when I saw it in a screenshot, I was like, oh, let's look at that sentence. Let's see what, let's proofread it together. And so the child and I were able to proofread it together. But I really like just taking a quick picture of it and emailing it to me, 2 seconds just to send it to me. We open it up, we look at it together, make sure I didn't miss anything that I couldn't see in them holding it up this way. So, and then when I go to the visual side, this is the side I really am loving to play with. I will do, I should have showed you this. Let me show you this. Sorry. I send my students an email, and the email has in it the Zoom link for the day. It has a Google Doc, and it also has the really great reading link so that they can click into that really great reading link rather than me controlling their screen. They click into it and they can share their screen with me, and I can watch them manipulating the cards themselves rather than it being in my access. But if you do the Zoom share, it would take that piece out of it because they could control right on top of your screen. But if you're a little bit less techie, like I was all summer, I just gave them access to the really great reading website, and then they shared their screen and I watched them move the letters like I would in the class. I don't touch the pocket chart in the classroom, so I wasn't touching their pocket chart. I was letting them figure it out, and then we would talk it through. So I just sent them an email with those 3 things on it. And in the Google Doc, then on the visual side, we do the cards the same way, old fashioned, and then I give them a Google Doc that has their decoding words in it. I have suffixes here, so the child is in their own Google Doc and I'm able to share it with them, so they have the same access I have, and when they highlight something, I see it showing up in a different color. Now I will tell you, so my mom was having a hard time with this, and what I told her, she wasn't getting the colors to come through. So I said, well, what you could also do is, okay, so we have a suffix. We're going to ignore the suffix ing. They can highlight it and then come up here and highlight it just with a highlight instead of with just their mouse. And then read your root word, put the word together. Does that make sense to everybody? Is that okay? So I have just gone to using, I have my lesson. It's really quick and easy to put together. I have all my words here. We do our decoding. We chop off our suffixes. So either they highlight it, and if you see it in another color, then it's great. If not, they just have to go up to highlight to get that suffix chopped off. Then as far as phrases go, for phrases, I have typed the phrases from the book that we are reading in that same Google Doc. This is actually not the same list as with the words that go with it. This was from another student that I am reading. She's going into middle school. And so the part I love about Slingerland the most, there's two parts. First of all, Slingerland taught me to read when I was in 4th grade. I couldn't read a lick. For those of you that don't know me, couldn't read a lick, and Slingerland taught me to read for the first time in 4th grade. So that's what I love most about Slingerland. But I love the fact that kids can read a book they want to read. And that to me is the best gift I can give a child. I'm not throwing a text at them that they don't really want to read. I can give them some choice. And so my students and I go through books and we talk through it, and I usually give them choices of books because it has to be at their readability level. However, they have a choice and they can choose their own books. And so I put the phrases into a Google Doc, and then if the child goes through, they just highlight as we're going through our steps. I highlight it and I read it every time I have ever watched a movie about middle school. And then I give them their clues. I go on, I highlight, I go through all of my phrases. And then when it's their turn, they go through and highlight and tell me what, they're finding those phrases and reading them to me, or finding the phrase that with the through the steps, what I'm asking them to find. And that seems to work really well and is just an easy, quick Google Doc share. The other thing I love that I found this summer was Amazon and Kindle books. So let me see if I find this. So I will order Kindle books on Amazon. I was taking pictures of every page in my books, and yeah, that was taking me forever, but it worked. So I was taking pictures of all of the pages of the books the kids were reading, but then I figured out I could do a Kindle book, and I just share my screen, and now the child and I can use all of the steps we had in Slingerland to go through reading a book. And what I found is I keep this book. I don't let them have access to it as far as controlling anything, because sometimes the pages can be difficult to turn. And then I have to play with it more. And if they had access, it may be a little bit more difficult for them. But we just go through and we read our book like this. We both can see it. I can go back to the Google Doc. If there's a word, like they read a word a certain way, I can type in whatever it is and say, this is your word, or let's see. So the word was stiff, and you said, and I can very quickly do that and have them look at it and make the change on their own, and then flip right back to the book, and we can keep on reading the book. And that the Kindle books has made life a lot easier for me, as far as not having to spend as much time for things. Trying to think if I forgot anything. So I'm kind of old school, but I found a little bit of twist to throw in there. Does anybody have any questions right now for me before we go on to teaching of rules, is what we're going to do next?
I have just a really quick question, Denise. Did you share your Kindle on your Zoom, or did you just share it in a different way? I couldn't really tell.
Okay, I shared it through Zoom. Yes.
Okay, that's what I do for it. And the other thing that I do just to save time is I will actually type. I mean, they can't really keep it, but I will actually type on the page of the text when they make a mistake. Or, sometimes I'll write it with the draw tool.
Yes.
That it just makes it really fast, and I can do it in another color. And I also use the arrows to point, when they're missing, because they sometimes won't be in sync with me, or they might have the book there even themselves reading in front of them, which is what I like, but sometimes their parents won't buy it. So
Yeah.
I just found that's really handy on Zoom to have those tools.
Those tools, yes, that is true. I like that, just to type it right on the page. I just go back and forth, but that would be a lot easier. It's perfect. Thank you. Anything else, Elise, that you saw that I should answer, or should we go on? Okay, we're going to go on to Bonnie and Will are going to talk about the 111 spelling rule and how they were able to come up with a way to teach that.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and introduce this. After our last meeting, Bonnie got in touch with me and we decided to do an example of, at her suggestion, how to do an example of the 111 spelling rule in Zoom using a LowTech solution for Zoom. So I'm going to play that video. 1 minute, I'll just share my screen. Hi, Bonnie.
It's day 4 of practicing the 111 word rule for doubling the final consonant before we add a suffix that begins with a vowel. And I'd like you to practice it independently. We're working towards functional independence here, so please go ahead if you don't mind.
Okay, so the thing.
And also please tell our audience which tools you're using and why, where they are.
Okay, so what I have to do is answer all 3 questions. So 1, is it a 1-syllable word? 2, does it end in 1 consonant? 3, does the final consonant come immediately after 1 vowel? Whoops. Hopefully that catches up soon. Sorry for the lag. If it doesn't, what we're going to be showing here is how the annotation tool can be used to put in check marks and X's. So you can do check, check, check for the 111 rule. You can use the draw tool to underline what the, like when you're decoding the word to show that there's only 1 syllable, you can underline the O in the mop. And what this is just using the annotate tool on top of a Google Doc. Oh, I'm really disappointed that my video is freezing. It looks like it may not recover.
You can also use the text tool for making your word transformations from mop to mopping. Obviously, that's one of the annotation tools is the text key.
Oh, this is disappointing. We put a lot of effort into this and it came out really good, I thought.
It's okay.
Okay, I think I have to, let me pause that and maybe I'll come back to it in a minute. Stop share for a minute. Okay, well, let's see. I'll come back to that and just see if the video works in a minute. The next thing I want to show is sort of at the opposite end from the Zoom. This is how the more high-tech solution would work. And I just want to say before starting that the fact that it's high-tech does not really make it better. In fact, I think the Zoom one is going to be the preferred choice for most people. There might be a couple of situations where you would want to do this high-tech thing. The second thing is, and I just learned about this in the last week and I've been playing around with it, is that similar to AllApp, which is in the videos that Erin and Emma and I made, there's another program that works the same way. You just type in a web address and it's called Classkick. And the advantage to Classkick is it's essentially like AllApp, except that you can have a whole class of students and you can go in and comment on each different student's work while you go. So if we have time tonight, I'll show how to do that. But I'm going to begin with just putting up the screen and going to, let's see if this is, that's still not going, so I have to pause that. What am I doing here? Let me get to the right tab before I go over there. Sorry, my bad. There we go. Okay, so AllApp. If I answer yes to all those questions, then I double the final consonant before I add the suffix that begins. Now it's caught up, but I think I'm gonna go on to AllApp and then I'll play that video at the end in case it does the same thing again. Okay, so in AllApp, you basically start out by creating a backdrop to write on. This is the high-tech use of AllApp. You can also use AllApp just as a demo board where you just use one blank paper and write on it the way you did in Zoom, but it's just as easy to use Zoom, I think, for that. So for this, you would go into your Google Slides and create a slideshow that has different slides for different parts of your lesson. And you save it as a template. And then each time you go on to do a new lesson, you just go through and change a couple of things. This one I have has the most things to change. So you actually type in the question of the day, but you can just as easily do like a simple lesson plan, which I'll show you here, where you just have a slide card that says question of the day, and then you just read the question of the day to the student. So you didn't have to type that in for each lesson. So I'm just going back and forth between tabs here. On the next page, you might say, this is the new letter that we're introducing today. We're going to introduce the letter H. Before a lesson, you would have to update this. And this is it's very time intensive. So I would have to go up here to insert image from my drive. Let's say that I'm using B. Sorry, I gotta move my pictures of you guys. And so I want to change to the B, and then I hit insert, and I resize that and delete the H. And it's a lot of work to kind of get your whole lesson set up because you're going through and having to insert these things. But if you had a really young student, and I think this was just what I learned by doing this, when I was first playing around with the program, it might be helpful to do all these things for your student. But in hindsight, I would say it's probably easier to just make sure the student has a copy of the letters in front of them, and that you have a copy that, your cards with you, so that you can just hold up the card and show it and just say, today we're doing SH, and you hold up that card instead of having it to go in and update it every time in this paper. But what you're doing here when you update the presentation is basically the same as what you would do getting your lesson plan ready. This would be turning the wall card around before introducing the new letter. This is getting your card ready in your card pack to show the student at the beginning. Over here, it's just a reminder while the student is doing the trace and you're teaching the letter about what the letter looks like. And then if you do one of these things where there's a lot that's in there embedded for the student, you have to change this for each lesson. And that takes a lot of time. And so I would say, again, unless you're doing it for a student who really needs that kind of visual support and is working really slowly and is younger, I wouldn't do that. And a couple other things you would want to update for a lesson are down here. There's some slides that I've made for visual. You can update what the decoding words are here. You can update any new concept that you're teaching before doing decoding on the new concept. You can put your phrases into the slideshow. You can put a reading passage in separated onto multiple slides. Now in Classkick, which is the other application, it's a little easier to do this. You don't have to have multiple slides, but this is, again, a lot of work for a presentation. So a simple lesson plan that you could do just has the question of the day, introduce the new letter with the wall card and the letter card. And this is where you just hold up and show the card instead of having to go and change them all out. And in the encoding and decoding, you just go through and, this would be like a blank template for decoding. Just type your words in, type your phrases in, and so on. But again, this also takes quite a bit of time to set up for each lesson, but probably no more time than what you're doing if you're setting up like a classroom for students that are coming in for a group, and you're having to put it all on yellow poster paper and so on. It's about the same amount of time. The third way to set up your lesson plan that's the easiest is just to have different kinds of lined paper. So you've got like, this is one line paper. I'm not sure if people can see this. Can you guys see the blue lines on that? Yeah, okay. So this is 1-line paper, and you just stick about 5 sheets of that in there. 2-line paper, about 5 sheets of that. 3-line paper, 5 sheets of that. And then what you do is just import this into AllApp to give the students the background of lined paper to write on. But this won't take you through the reading part. For the reading, you would still have to go in and type in phrases. And maybe just use the Google Docs to do that, the way that Denise and the video that Bonnie and I made shows how to do. So to get from Google Slides to AllApp, you have to do 2 things. And these are in the videos that I showed before. Let me go back to this one. I go up here, I go to File, Download, PDF. And it takes a couple seconds to download. And then you come over to AllApp, which I have in this tab over here. And AllApp is just a website. It's awwapp.com. So it's not an app. You don't actually have to install anything on your phone or your tablet or your laptop. You just go to the web page. And when you're here, you can import a file. So I want to import a PDF. You do have to have the paid version to be able to do this. And I want to go to my downloads. I just downloaded that. And I can open that up. And this takes a minute to do. But this actually takes, it'll take a couple of minutes to upload the whole app. So I'll tell you about a couple of the advantages of using AllApp. If you're a private tutor and you're working with a county or something, a school district, and they're doing reimbursement, you can save the student's work here, which you can also do by having a photo of it, taking a photo. But this gives it to you with a timestamp because it emails you the student's paper afterwards. And it has all the students writing on it. So here I can just, okay, it's uploaded now. And you can see that I have 49 pages over here. And it's got all the slides that we just looked at. There's the B that I changed it to. Of course, I didn't change the H. But now what I want to do first is invite the student to come into this app. And so I copy my link. Then I have to come over here and send an email to the student. And I already started it up in email. I'm going to send this to myself as the student. I would put in the Zoom link here, just like Denise did with hers. Here's the Zoom link for today's meeting, and here's the AllApp link, and then hit send. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a tablet as if I was the student, and I'd open this up from the email on my tablet. So you have to know what email address is connected to the student's tablet to know which one to send it to as a link. Whoops, 1 second, my pencil's charging. All right.
Could you send the link in the chat instead of sending an email if you have younger learners?
Yes.
The problem with that is that it will show up in the chat, which they're probably going to have open on their laptop, and you're going to end up having them write onto this screen here.
Okay.
So they need to get the email to the tablet so that they can open up AllApp on the tablet.
Okay.
Because they're actually going to, you'll see they'll be able to actually write onto this tablet all the steps of the lesson.
Okay.
But if you're just using AllApp for visual things, then you can send them the link in the chat. I do that often. It's easier. They don't have to have an email that they have to go to and find. It's just right there when you're teaching.
Yeah. So that's, thanks, Emma. So if you're just using it as a demo platform, but you're not going to have the student write into it, then you can send it in the chat. But if you want the student to write into the document, then send it to them via email so they can do it open it on the tablet. So what I can do with this, which is nice, is as the teacher, I can show the student how to make the letter, right, on this demo, and I'm using my mouse key thing now, so it's not going to come out very nicely. And then that shows up on the student's document. Let me get the student's document open here. So now the student can see the H that I just did. So if I talk them through how to make the H, then they have that H there. If I go down a couple slides, again, this is my totally elaborate one, then I've got an H pattern in there if we're doing the letter H. The student can come in and change their pencil width to, to 3, where's the width? There it is. You usually want to get them to have a wide pencil width because it just writes nicer. And I'm going to do this on my tablet actually, so you can see. And the student can write on here. Now you won't see anything the student does until they pick up their pencil, but you can see their mouse moving around the paper. So that's as close to live time as you can get. And it's not perfect, but on the next Windows screen, if I have the student doing a practice letter, I can have them work in yellow. I'm shaking. And there's an H, and you sort of get to watch them form it, and then you can have them trace over it in black. And all of this is getting saved into a document that you can export at the end. And then you can have them cover that up with this rectangle tool. Oops, tool the rectangle. Why did that not work? Whoops, okay. Rectangle, dark. So you just cover that up, and then they can move over and put their H in the third square. Now, again, I am not going to say that this is going to be easy to do with a student, but with a student in 4th grade and above, I think it'll probably be easy, 3rd grade and above. If you're looking at younger grades, it might be a lot more difficult, or you'd want to have the parent next to you while you're doing this. Once you've done the first couple times, then it's going to be easy, but it's going to take a little time to get those things. You get to put in the rectangle, the student doesn't have to do that. So anyway, I can undo that. I should have done the rectangle from being the teacher here. I kind of messed that up. The video that I did works a little bit better. Sorry, I don't know why, but I'm getting a little nervous here. So the other things that you can do with this, let's see. If you are going through on the different pieces of paper, you can have them practice letter connections. So the student's doing, yellow, and let's say you did B, BA, and the student gets to go do B, A. And you as the teacher can come in and let me do another one and I'll make a mistake. Let's say I did B, I, and I did it like this. Okay, then as the teacher, I can come on here on my device and I can be choosing a different color. Let's say I choose purple. Then I can do B. This part of your B is really good. Nice how you touch the top. This is great. Way to come in and touch. But remember, the B has a high connecting stroke to the I. Okay. And then dot. And then the student comes in and you say, go ahead and trace over that. And the student can come in with their black and they can trace over because they're seeing your correction on their paper. So this is one advantage that you don't get from doing the LowTech solution, is that you can see, maybe you can't see, hopefully you can see that all 3 colors have shown up there. My correction ended up directly onto their paper and they're able to trace over my correction, which is something you can't do when the student's on paper. So let's see. Next thing that I'm doing here.
Will, can I ask a couple of questions that have come in?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay, so one question is, what's the advantage of AllApp versus the whiteboard in Zoom? This is from Laura Davison.
Okay, so the whiteboard in Zoom only allows you to have one page. And so during the lesson, you're constantly creating pages that have different sizes of letters, lines, and going back and deleting all the lines, and then importing your
Actually, they
Word-
changed that, Will. I'm not sure if it's just the paid version, but now you can have multiple whiteboards, and it's really cool because once you work on one page and you want to switch over to the other, you can, and it saves the first one, and you can keep doing that. I don't know if it's into infinity or not, but you actually, if I mean, I find that sometimes you get little extra tools if you pay for the app, and it's kind of worth it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But
I have the paid version of Zoom, and I haven't checked recently, but from the last time that I looked, I didn't see a place to import.
maybe I can pull mine up and show you what I'm talking
That
about.
would be awesome, because I haven't found
Yeah.
out how to do that either, so that'd be great if you
Let
could
me
show
stop
us.
sharing real quick.
When you're finished with this, if you want me to, I can pull mine up and just show you what I'm talking about.
If you have it, why don't you go ahead and get it ready, and then we'll just switch over.
Okay, you mean, okay.
Like if there's a place in Zoom to import a large file of like a multi-page PDF.
Nope, that's not what I meant. I use a whiteboard, and when I filled it up, I just go to the next page on
Okay.
the whiteboard. Does that
So I
make
would say
sense?
that then I will go back and I'll say that the reason that AllApp has an advantage is that I get to import all my lined paper so that I have different sizes of lined paper so that I can switch from 1 line to 2 line to 3 line to 5 line paper without having to make lines during the lesson. And all of that setup time that I showed you at the beginning, once I've done that once, if I'm just importing lined paper, I don't have to do it again. So, whereas with Zoom, you're going to have to keep making lines if you want the lines.
Well,
So
no,
this is-
you actually could. There's one other way you could do it. You could have your lined paper scanned in, and you have it ready in Google Docs. So you pull up whichever page you're working on, and then you would share it as a document, and you can actually, write on that, and you can save the document, in your Zoom folder. So that would be another way to do it. The reason I'm only saying this because the only thing I've worked with is the parameters of Zoom. So I've just gone really deep as I can to figure out how I can do workarounds for everything that has come up that's been an obstacle. And just recently, they've allowed the change in that Zoom whiteboard. You can have as many of the whiteboard sheets as you want, but the handwriting piece, you can actually use a document that you scanned in on your Google Docs that is the handwriting paper. So that would be one way you could use Zoom.
Okay, well, I'll look into that before, next time we do this, because I also want to look into Classkick, because I think people who are teaching groups are going to want to see some more about Classkick. And so I'll look into both of those things. Anyway, so this is the letter connections. And then from here, going into written cards, like this original one that I made, you can see it has a yellow bar at the bottom. That's like the learning to write section. So you could do all your letter connections there. You wouldn't use all these papers, but they're just there. Then there's like a reminder page for doing auditory cards. This is kind of the over the top one, written cards, lined paper for that. So write what says "ol," and the student can just, write on here. And again, you have the ability to do corrections over them, but the lined paper is all there for you. Let's zoom along here instead of going page by page, I can also just type in like page 32. I think that'll get me close to there. When I get to the visual side of the lesson, another thing we have here is, so I imported these words. So when I touch them, it's not going to move them because they're not part of the, because they're part of the backdrop. So the student can just come in here and take their red pen. I see one vowel pattern. That means I have one syllable, a consonant, a, hat, and so on. And they just are writing on there, and you have this record at the end of the lesson when you export the whole file. And you don't actually, at the end of the lesson, they just send you, you click this export board, and it sends you an email, which is kind of time-stamped for when you did the lesson. So you've got that. There's introducing the new concept DGE. Here's the phrases. So on the phrases, what you can do is just create this little rectangle bar here. let's say we fill it with red this time and put it here. And now both I and the student can move this bar. Oops, sorry, I'm in draw here still. And I can underline which phrase I'm reading. And as a teacher, I can move the panel up here. Whoops. I'm going to go into this. I can move it for the student to read. Again, this is kind of like maybe excess and unnecessary, but it might be useful for a student who's highly visual that wants to see, what they're supposed to do and needs a little less structure. So let me see here. On the next page, we've actually got the structured reading passage. So this is if you want to import the whole lesson into one lesson in AllApp. Those are all the steps you would have to go through. And I can do this export board, export as a PDF, regular quality, which is all you need. And it'll now send me an email that has as an attachment the whole lesson, all the writing that I did, all the writing that the student did, and I can just close that out like this. Before I go on to Classkick, I'm just going to show you the LowTech solution for, the easier AllApp one, which is instead of importing a lesson, I just import a stack of paper. And so this would be assorted lines of paper, 5 lines each, 5 pages of each one. If I import this, then I've just got 5 pages of single line, 5 pages of 2 line, 5 pages of 3 line. And I just am going to advance through the slides to whatever line of paper I want. And anything that's written gets done on here. But in terms of the decoding list, I could go into Google Docs and do that. So that didn't take very long at all. I have that sitting on my desktop. I import it and go away. I still have to invite the student into this lesson, copy the link, paste it into the email that I sent to them and so on. But that doesn't take very much. There's no prep time at all, virtually no prep time involved in that. It's already done. And both me and the student are going to be working in that document in pretty quick, in pretty much no time. Does anybody have more questions about AllApp? Because I think I could probably fit in a brief preview of what Classkick does if there's a little time. Elise, do you see any questions or? Oh, you're on mute still, Elise.
Yes, I better unmute myself. Okay, Emma's actually been answering questions as they come along, but there's a couple here. Does anyone know if having the student write the letter with their mouse or finger on the screen translate to having them form it well on paper with the right pencil grip and all that?
That's the thing that I have struggled with. And that's why I've gone to looking into getting some other device, because I think that if they're using like a trackpad in writing it, it is very difficult for them to control. So the visual input that they're getting may not be linking to the hand movement that they're making. But you have an actual Apple Pen. And so that might be
an Apple Pencil, yeah.
Pencil, nice. Okay. Which that is probably much more accurate then.
It's better than the mouse trackpad, yeah. Yeah. But I think it's probably about the same as a regular stylus on the non-Apple product.
I don't know if that answered the question or not, but I would say I think that if you had a stylus, if you had something more to hold on to rather than the kid just doing it with their finger or fingers on a trackpad, your visual and kinesthetic stimuluses are going to link up better than just with their fingers.
I think the big answer to that question is we don't know yet because no one's done a study to find out. But
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think if you're doing it on the mouse trackpad and you have them saying out loud the steps to forming each letter, you're at least getting them to do that sub-vocalization of each of the steps, you know, like I go up to the headline,
Right.
you know, curve back down. And you can, but it is true that their hand isn't in the proper position for the final letter, but
But
you can also have,
yeah, watching the videos where you and Aaron were actually doing the writing, there seemed to be much more control and it was smoother. So it was really simulating the sequence of movements that is unique to each letter. And it
Yeah.
actually looked like the letter when you finished, as opposed to when I try to use a stylus or my fingers.
yeah, I'll tell you, it didn't take very long, but it took me, you know, a couple of tries to get the pencil down. So I would say like having the parents get the pencil and give it to the student to play in some kind of a drawing app for a couple of times before you sit down to have a lesson is probably going to help get rid of some of the anxiety and build a little bit of buy-in from the student, because now they've got this cool drawing tool that they have because of their reading program. So they're gonna, you know, and it is fun to draw with. It is pretty good.
Can I just ask, are you, hi Will, are you doing this just with one-on-one students? You said you're tutoring, or are you doing it with a small group? And do any of you have experience of working with a small group and using these forms of technology, and how efficient is it with more than one student?
So this solution right now on AllApp will not work with more than one student at a time. You don't have the ability to give each student their own whiteboard, but in a minute, I'll show you Classkick, which does have that option, but I've only heard about it. I haven't used it with a group, and I heard about it from Elise, what's the name of the school, San Jose?
Valley Christian School in San Jose. A couple of their teachers are using Classkick.
And it's very cool. It's basically the same as AllApp. Maybe I should just show that now. Let me go ahead and show that now. So, all right, now am I still sharing a screen? I am, okay. So this is Classkick, and it has a list of assignments. I already put together a template, which does take a little bit of time, but it has different lined paper. So it's just like what I just showed in the last one where I import, and it's got lined paper. So I'll go ahead, and you see three things up here: edit, assign, and view work. So the first thing I can do is edit the slides. You can't probably make it out from yet, but this is 1-line paper, this is 2-line paper, 4-line paper, and so on. And it's just blank lined paper. That's all I've done for this one here. Okay, so then I go to assign and assign a roster. I have a practice roster here, which I think is one I created earlier, but haven't had a chance to use. So I've assigned it to the practice roster, which is me and Elise and Emma and Aaron and Denise, I think. And because I had to make sure I had multiple students. So once I do this assign, there is a class code over here, IVDCV4, and the students have the ability to connect to that, but or I can invite them. How do I do this? Invite now. Let me see. 1 minute. Oh yeah, okay. So I click on that class code and a link comes up here, and I copy this link and I send it to the people. So let me see. I'm actually gonna send this to if any of you guys want to jump in and try this, you can. I'm gonna go ahead and jump in on it. Let's see. And oops. The window that has all of your pictures in it is getting in my way. Sorry, I forgot to put the link in there. Okay, so this goes to everyone, and then people can pull it up on a tablet or on their computer. You'd want them to have it on a tablet if you want them to write into it directly. And so now I can go to view work. And what view work will show me is where everybody is. And if you guys just got an invitation to this, just type in your first name and it'll match up if you're one of the people I just put in. Sorry. I have to pull this up on my computer to show you. So everything is grayed out right now because nobody's started a page. But as soon as any student starts one of the pages, so they're all on page 1 right now, which is white. As soon as somebody starts to write on it, then you're going to see what page they're on. Okay, so there's the 5 students. And I'll go in and write. Okay, great. So people are writing. So Emma did a nice A. Elise wrote hello. And I can zoom in on that page and see what she did. And as the teacher, I can go in and I can put a star. And I have some nice ones. Here's a nice work, you know, and I plop it down right there. And when she goes back to that page, she'll see that star. And then I can go back and I can see how's Emma doing? And she zooms in there. Okay, she's got an A. All right, I want her to go up and touch this headline a little bit more. So I'll take my marker and try and follow as much of what she's done as I can. I'm not using a mouse here because I'm on my computer instead of my laptop. I'm using my touch screen, and I can give her one to follow. I should have done that in a different color so that she would know.
Well, she's also on the middle. She's starting on the middle line, and she didn't start on the baseline.
Oh, right. Okay, I didn't see that part.
I don't know if she did that on purpose. She probably did just for fun. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
And that's actually Elise. It's not Emma. So
Oh,
yeah,
so-
I did.
Okay.
I think it's great when you make a mistake like that, so that
Yeah.
we can fix it together.
That's it.
That's good. So yeah, that is it. You know, some of this is getting used to like how the paper shows up on the computer.
Screen.
It's kind of, I should zoom out a little bit so I can see the paper better.
Mine is hello on that same spot because I thought it was single line
Yeah.
paper.
So that's, you know, something that you'll get used to with students is that, you know, that when you first get into the thing, zoom in on it. When you open it on a tablet, it still does that. So, but let me see. Okay, so here's somebody who saw how to do it. Emma is currently here. Good job, Emma. And I can say, great letter formation, and drop that star in there, and I can just keep going. It has like some saved stamps over here, so you can check students' work real quickly and go through your whole roster. And, you know, just have students tracing. So this is mine. And if I want to go in and watch the student make the letter, this is one drawback, is that it only shows you the letter after it's complete. So it pops up in one thing, and you can't follow the mouse doing the letter formation. So that's a small problem, but it does have that H there, okay? And then if I'm using the page numbers here, I can, well, as the teacher, I'm gonna wanna go back up and I can see who's gone on to other pages. After you go through each page and write on it, then it stays highlighted, but they're kind of grayed out until you get to them. So this is how this one works. And what you'll want to do for this, if you just wanted each student to have their own record of their work, is you would still give the presentation of how to form the letter in Zoom the way that Denise showed earlier. So you give the demo there, but this is just like their pad of paper on their desk. So I don't know if it's any better than having real paper and having them hold it up and email it to you at the end, but it does give you the option to go in and look at each student's work as they go, which I think is, you know, can be advantageous. So the student goes on to the next page, and, you know, can write like the A. Okay, now I did this B really incorrectly. Teacher comes along to take a look. Oh, look at that. They're really like crossing that B low. Let's see if we can correct that. And so the teacher is going to come in and change the color. Where is color?
Right there.
All right. And say, you know, okay, everything looks good, but let's try and get now the teacher is going to want to be on a tablet too, because writing with this mouse pad is just not that helpful for the student. It just doesn't give you the same. You can just see how I'm straining to try and get this letter formation. But on the iPad, you know, when I do the same thing, I can pretty quickly, it really mirrors the experience of holding a pencil, you know, it's like, probably as good as I would do on paper right now. And I think that's true for students too. They do sell the little things that you can put, the Apple Pencil is kind of a slender pencil. I mean, it's about the size of, a little bit thicker than a regular pencil, but they do sell little things you can put on the ends to make them thicker for students who want that, if you want that for the student. But that's Classkick. And I think the last time we did this video thing, we were talking about what are you going to do when you have groups of students. And I think for a group of 4 students, you could pretty much keep track of this. They don't have the ability to have 2 teachers, but they do have the ability for students to comment on other students' work. So if you're someone that has a group of like 8 students, but you have a paraeducator, you can just have your paraeducator join as a student, and then they can help you going in and making corrections on students' papers. So I don't know how this will actually work in practice, but it's just that there's the technical possibility that it could be done. And, you know, so we'll have to see if it actually works. But I don't know if people have questions about Classkick.
I think before I would do a small group myself, I would probably have friends or colleagues come in and just us do it together as a group and see, like, take turns being the teacher and just seeing how it went. I think that might be a really nice way to get your feet wet. Yeah,
I think that's a good idea, you know, kind of like what we did in the summer school, get our practice in. Let me see, and I'm showing.
I saw before somebody asked about if we had taught it in small groups, and then my computer shut down, my Zoom shut down. So I don't know exactly what was talked about with that, other than trying this with the new software that we just found. I've done Zoom with classrooms just to get students ready for the fact that in our state, I don't know how all states are working, but in our state, we are in school right now with half capacity. And then there's a possibility we're going back full time, but there's a possibility at any point we could be pulled and be stuck at home. So I am teaching full classrooms of kids via Zoom with a teacher there to help do the supervision, hoping that will transfer to home. And it is gone. My teachers today, I videotaped a lesson and they're like, it's the greatest thing because we can do it when it fits into our schedule. And we just pause it when we need to pause it. And I just take the Zoom document, I film it, and then I put it into my drive. And then I just email the teachers a link and they have all of their writing paper there. They can do it whenever. Where I'm thinking with a classroom like this, we could do that. And then the students could have the video, but have the paper, have everything they need and be able to turn that in to me at a later time. If they had to do it at home. If we were, you know, using the Classkick, they could turn in the paper later on to me, but still have that video through Zoom, or I could teach it live.
Yeah, and you could also send that if you were doing an individual student with Zoom. As I said, that's the only thing I really learned to use yet. You can send the video to the parent, and the parent oftentimes will, for my really little ones, they sit with me. Mm-hmm. And I have dropped off, because they're local, I dropped off, I embossed the letters with crayon and a screen so they actually can feel it big and everything. And I show the parents how I'm doing it. and they can actually take that video and, you know, use it in between lessons with their child, because they're getting so little of it, what they need right now. And
Yeah.
parents are just so excited to learn it. You know, they really are. I mean, the ones, I should say, are excited to learn it. The ones that are, yeah, I hate to say it, but stay-at-home moms. I'm sure the ones that are working are not excited. but you know, I'd be jumping out my second floor window right now if I were having to parent a child, little one. It would be hard. So, but anyway, if you have the luxury of that, I think parents can benefit.
And I will say, from a parent of a first grader right now, I love it when the teachers send those things. My son's kindergarten teacher last spring would send stuff like that, and I would do it with him because it wasn't me telling him he had to do it. There's your teacher. Your teacher's having you do that. So it was great to have that.
You can do it alongside, the parent can do it alongside the child. So the
Yes.
parent's showing the child that they're trying to learn it too.
Yes.
And
And
it somehow builds some kind of community there, I think. At least that's been the experience that I've had so far. So
yeah. And that's what I said to my son. I'm learning so much just watching the teacher. You know, I'm learning myself. This is great. We can do it together. And how do they explain it to you? Even from classroom to classroom, teachers explain it differently. And it's nice to have that. Yeah. Any other questions that? I wish I knew more about Seesaw. I see that popping up there. I will be learning more, I'm sure, this year.
Yeah, Emma, do you want to join in and speak some of your answers here? Because some of these
Seesaw,
answers
I read the Seesaw versus AllApp. Seesaw, we use it at the school that I work at, and it's mainly just something where we can push out an assignment and a student can either write on your paper or like do something interactive on the computer. But it's not something that you can see in live time. So it is a way that you can say like, okay, you're going to go write something and then like post it on Seesaw and I'll check it out. I've used it to like quickly like look, instead of them sending me an email. It's like quick, they have their login, they already know where it is, but it's not a live interactive whiteboard that the student has and you have, and you're watching everything they're doing live. It's delayed. And it requires them to take a photo and upload it and for you to wait to get it. It's the same as an email, just through a platform.
also on Seesaw, what I noticed was if you use it, you probably are better off creating your document in Google Docs and then cutting and pasting it and putting it into Seesaw. That was what with the fifth grader that I was doing writing with. That seemed to work the best, because writing in the actual Seesaw app was just kind of a nightmare. They had to type it. It was, I don't know, it was hard. So I think preparing that document ahead of time, you know, on sharing the Word document back and forth in real time and seeing, you know, the editing done like that was really helpful. And then taking the final draft of it and putting it in the Seesaw for the teacher was what worked really well. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but.
Oh. Does that seem to just about cover it?
Yeah, I think that about covers it. I don't see too many more questions here.
Okay. I'm going to put my email address in the chat, and if people have
People
questions,
have
please.
asked to get a copy of the template that you used for your Google Slides. And so.
Oh, template for Google Slides. Yeah,
Yes.
I can share that too.
Mhm.
Let's see. Which one should I share? Just the
blank one, probably.
blank lined paper.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's going in the chat.
And remember, everyone, you can save your chats. So you have all the information and all the questions that were shared with everyone. If you look at the three little buttons next to file, there's an option to save chat, and it will have the links and everything.
If anybody's watching this as a recording later on, my email address is william.patterson.tutoring gmail.com. It's a long one, but
I wanted to show
And-
you the whiteboard thing too, if I can. It just take 1 second. See that little box down there? If I write something, you know, if I type something up here. Okay, and then I want to go to another page and write something else. Like, you know, I can write.
right, we can't see that box, Bonnie, because it's part of Zoom, and it's that problem where you can't see somebody else's Zoom controls while
So
you're
it's
in.
not a new whiteboard for you? It's a new, look at my
It
screen.
is, it's a new whiteboard, but we can't see what you clicked on
Thank you.
So-
Oh, you can't because
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
the teacher.
because
There
it's the Zoom controls.
Well, if you're the teacher and you have Zoom, there's this little tiny box on the bottom that looks like it's rotating. I can't see it very well. And it has a little plus sign in it. And it tells you which number whiteboard you're on. So there's my number 1 whiteboard. Here's my number 2 whiteboard. That would be a new whiteboard. So every time you filled up a whiteboard, you can keep moving it if you're doing handwriting. which I
Okay,
think is super cool. And that's a new thing, or else I just discovered it. I don't know about you guys, but I'm loving it. So
I have to,
I'm terrible. Once I learn one technology, I get really stuck on it because I'm.
I mean, if they have that, I'll bet they have it where you can import a PDF into your whiteboard now too.
That would just be so amazing. But I mean, I just stop the share and go into Google Docs and pull up my, you know, like my spelling, my encoding sheet. The 111 rule that we were going to do. But
Well, I don't know if anybody wants to, you know, join a little group to work on like advancing the technology platform for Slingerland and over the next month. And then we get back together in a month from now, maybe, and say like, okay, this was a good idea. This is much better now. We've got this worked out. That didn't work. And then, you know, try some of these things with students, especially, and get some real feedback on how does it work with students, you know, the Apple Pencils and things like that. You know, I would be more than happy to sit on such a group with people.
well, I wanted to say something about the Apple Pencil too. I know it's a wonderful implement, but it also emits a lot of radiation. So just keep it in mind. You might not want to be like I had my one student putting it in her hair and holding it back. And I just think it's possible to not use an electronic stylus, and you know the kids get excited about it and they don't want to let it go. So you might want to try out some other styluses that are not electronic.
Okay. I mean, yeah, any kind of stylus. I'm curious to see what happens when students start, you know, when people start having students writing on the tablet, and how that works. And if anybody does that, please let me know so we can, you know, compare notes and so on.
I have a question since no one's speaking up. I have made, and was wondering if anybody has done anything like with the spelling cards to create a manipulative where people could manipulate them around. I don't know, everyone talk at once.
No, I have not. I'm thinking that's probably what we could do with Wizmo. Wait, I always say that wrong. Is I right, Wizmo?
Yeah, I can show people how Wizmo.
Wizimo.
Wizmo. Okay.
Yeah, Wizmo. Let me get it up on my screen first, and then I'll show people.
You're asking about like the
Because
spelling
I've
rule
created,
cards.
yeah, because I've created just in a Google slide, like a big plus the ER and then, you know, and then you make the G, but that's with me doing it on a slide. And I would love to be able to have something where the kids could move it around. And they've got, here's the word big, here's the plus, here's the ER, here's the equal, and then they move a G in there when they move it, you know what I mean? I would love to be able to have those, some kind of cards where the kids can move it around. I was just wondering if anybody's done anything like that yet.
You could prep something in AllApp so that it's fit to your lessons and you have like pieces that they can move as a whole. It's a little clunky. I haven't done that exactly, but I've done it where like I have created boxes where kids need to move them around on AllApp, and they've had some success with like trying to click and drag, but they've had trouble also with the idea of like if they're on a computer, like you need 2 fingers to do the click and drag piece. And if they're on an iPad, they have to really like click gently to push it where it needs to go. It can definitely cause frustration, but it can be novel for some kids of like, oh, I get to do something interactive where I'm moving things around. That's so great. So AllApp has the ability to do it, and then you can tailor it for whatever word you're working with.
Thank you.
If people want to see Wizimo, I can just share my screen real quick and show it. I don't think it will work for that, but since we looked at really great reading, and really great reading is going to start costing money at the end of this month, unless they extend the timeline again. This is Wizimo. You set up your own board. So there's a way for me to go and change where these things are. They've got, I've got different vowel patterns over here, some of the more common suffixes right here. But they also have all of these prefixes, roots, suffixes. That I haven't even gotten them all in there, but you can
Kind of have to be careful
go
with
through
the
and find all those.
prefixes, suffixes, and roots because they don't.
They're not going to be the list that.
It's not just the list. They have things that aren't really
Yeah.
prefixes. Yeah.
It's not perfect, and so, but you get to choose
mean,
which ones you
suffix.
use and which ones you don't use. What you don't have the ability to do is to make new ones. So I can't make a tile for, STLE if I wanted a tile for STLE. I just have to do without. So you're limited to what they have, but they do have a lot. And you can ignore the ones that you don't want to use. So, if you feel like CRACY is not a root element, then don't use it, I mean, there's just, it's not an ideal platform. It was created by some people who then worked with Barton and then worked with somebody that's doing an Orton Gillingham thing, but they haven't branched out from there. But whatever tiles they created for those other people, they'll let you use, but you don't get to make your own. So it is free with their free version. And, so students can, if you only wanted to use it for the earlier grade things, you can have like E, pull that down, and then, R, move your E over, and then S, T, okay. And then let's add our suffix, ing. Is it a one-on-one word? Oh, no, it's not. Okay, so we just bring this down. Like, it has the, write it on your paper. You've got some manipulative, and yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Do we have any more questions?
I just have one other question. So if you have some students that have iPads and some students that have laptops, you kind of have to do different things if they don't have a touch screen. Is that right?
They can interact. Well, hi, Laura. It's nice to see you. They can definitely interact in the same way on an iPad versus their computer. If they're older, their dexterity is probably better on a computer than a younger guy. Like my younger kids don't know how to use the laptops that they're on. So like that's been problematic. And they've been better on an iPad because it's pretty intuitive of like, this is my finger and like I'm on this thing all day. I know how to touch and like move things around. Whereas like if I have an older kid, they can manipulate more things on the iPad using AllApp. So it's definitely like, for me, my experience with the kids I've worked with over the summer and now, it's like really individualized what each kid gets. And you kind of have to think about who am I working with, what's going to work best, and what do they have at their house, and how can I make it work for them?
But they have to have a touchscreen computer if they're able to write on it. Is that right?
Yeah. I'm moving away from writing anything on an iPad or a computer unless they're typing.
Yeah, I haven't been. I just have them put the camera so I can see them writing it.
Yeah. And that's perfect. And I tilt my screen down halfway and just have their paper on the table so that I see it upside down. But like for me, it works better than them like holding their paper up to me because that never seems to work for my students.
Right.
There's supposed to be a cool trick where if you're on a screen share in Zoom, if you plug in your phone, it can be used as a document camera. I haven't done it yet. I've only heard about it.
An OG group did a video about, I think, how you do it. And they used like soup cans. They stacked like 2 soup cans. They put their phone on top and then another soup can, and it films straight down onto like either your paper or the kid's paper. And it's supposed to be a cool way to make your DIY doc cam.
Well, thanks, everybody. I think we got a lot of information tonight. We have some Slingerland follow-up classes that are going to be starting on the 10th of October, if anybody's interested. Nancy Cushion White's going to be doing those. And we also have like a screening skills class that's going to be happening in October. So, and I have the feeling that we'll be meeting once again to have more tech fun. Well, I don't know if you saw it, but people are asking if we can do an actual start to finish lesson on AllApp, since that seems to be the one that we referenced a lot this evening. So Emma.
I'd be happy to help out with that.
Yes, definitely. So we'll have to get together and figure out date and time and see if we can make that happen. But I want to thank everybody for Will, Emma, Denise, Bonnie, for your participation, and then the rest of us for listening, and for me attempting to learn. Yeah, hope we can see each other again soon. And if you have any questions, I mean, Will put his email up there. You guys know where I am. Reach out. We'll do what we can, and I don't know if you guys have anything else to say. Chime in.
I'll just say on the next one, I would leave it up in the air on whether it would be best to do AllApp or Classkick, because in Classkick you can have a class of just one student, and it does have some things that are a little more advantageous than AllApp, and I think it's a little bit cheaper too, well, only a couple bucks a month. But so if people hear of anything, please send it my way so I can compare it as well, because I'm sure there's something better than that's great out there.